Okay, this may look like a blank wall to you. It actually does to me too, so I guess we're on the same page. Hey, take it easy up there. Uh, I just finished a wonderful session, and I finished it with one of my oldest and dearest friends, who's one of the most greatest musicians I've ever worked with, and his place in the music industry is so solidified, but I thought we would share a moment with you, and that is the incredible Herb Peterson. Hi, Herb.
Hi, folks.
How are you, man?
Hi, Lee. Great to be here.
Oh, man, it's great. I love working with you, and this was really a fun project to be working on.
I appreciate you coming in because I know you're a busy guy. So,
well,
yeah.
Yeah. Happy to be a working musician at this
right.
age.
Aren't we all? Yes.
But, you know, I thought it would be really fun just to talk to everybody and kind of share your history, you know, where you grew up, your musical influences and all that, and what got you to this backyard.
Well, yeah, fifth grade at St. Augustine's Grammar School in Oakland, California, I met my pal Butch Waller, who also liked the Everly Brothers. So we were fifth graders listening to the beginnings of rock and roll and all that.
Great.
And I just had a wonderful time working with him because he was a fledgling guitar player as I was, and you know, we kind of got together, started our first band together, the Pine Valley Boys, which was a bluegrass band back in high school. And so I grew up in the Bay Area. My dad was a policeman in Berkeley, not a college campus cop, but the real deal. So you know, we all had to toe our marks to be sure, because back then Berkeley was kind of a smallish town. All of the kids kind of knew each other from the various high schools and that sort of thing. And so we got into folk music, you know, the Kingston Trio and the Limelighters, and then all of a sudden I discovered bluegrass, and that was just the turning point for me. I was going to go on to college and maybe be an architect. I wasn't sure yet, but
yeah, I know that feeling.
That went, you know, sideways. So when I heard Earl Scruggs play the 5-string banjo, that was it for me.
And then we look at your shirt right here.
Oh yeah, okay.
Look at that beautiful banjo. That's great.
So anyway, yeah, and you know, we played around the Bay Area for a few years, you know, different coffee houses, because that was the thing back then.
Yeah.
These little places like the Jabberwock and the Tsubo, which was a Japanese restaurant and had jazz in it, and near our house. You know, it was all very kind of small community.
Did you ever play the Mandrake Club in Berkeley?
No.
Any chance? I played there with harmonica George Smith back in the 60s, and it was another one of those great Bay Area clubs.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, there were a bunch of them cropping up.
Yeah.
So we kept busy. You know, we would play, you know, every weekend somewhere, all the way down to San Jose. You know,
cool.
There were lots of places. The Tangent, I think, was in San Jose, and that's where Pat Simmons from the Doobies came with his mom to see us play.
Oh, great.
and that later on, Pat had me work on the Minute by Minute album, and I played banjo on a tune called Steamer's Lane Breakdown. And he was great, you know.
Pat's great. I did one of his solo albums, and he was just the nicest cat to be with in the studio and stuff. I've always appreciated him.
Amazing, yeah. And so, yeah, you know, the Bay Area was kind of a hotbed for different types of music. I mean, Jerry Garcia and I were, you know, learning the banjo right around the same time. He being in Palo Alto, me being in Berkeley, and we'd see each other from time to time. He had a band, acoustic band, and so we would see each other from time to time. And he was always a complete music nut. He played blues, he played rock and roll, and this was before the Dead started. Okay, so we were kind of into, you know, traditional bluegrass, Leland Sklar, Bill Monroe, all that kind of stuff.
Cool.
The Stanley Brothers. So I did that for as long as I could, and then I realized there's kind of a stumbling block there where I'm only going to go so far in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
So what I ended up doing was moving down to California. I mean to L.A. And we had our band, the Pine Valley Boys. We played for Doug Weston at the Troubadour, and he liked our band. And the guy who was running the Hoots on Monday night, Tony Mafia,
Yeah.
he was going to go off and promote his paintings.
Hmm.
You know, did you know he was?
I didn't know he was a painter.
Yes. And so he was going to go on an extended tour, I think. And so he hired us to run the Hoots on Monday night.
Oh, how cool.
So we were 18, you know, fresh out of high school, and we thought, oh, this is great. You know, what a great place to start. So in that period of the singer-songwriters, you would see guys come in and sign up, you know, at the back door of the Troubadour. There was a clipboard, and you put your name as to, you know, when you're going to play and all that. And that's where I first met Crosby and McGuinn, when he was Jim McGuinn, and Chris Hillman, who was playing with his band, the Golden State Boys, which was Vern and Rex Gosden.
Wow.
Vern Gosden, a great country singer.
Yeah.
His brother Rex played bass, and Vern played guitar and mandolin. And they were amazing. They were such a good band. And that's where Chris and I first got together. So
Wow.
1963.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And
The Troubadour was it. I mean, you'd see
Well, yeah.
so many people come through, the Tim Buckleys and
oh yeah,
all these
well,
people.
we did when I after that I moved back up to the Bay Area for a while and worked with a duet, Vern Williams and Ray Park. They were like the Louvin brothers.
Oh, okay.
They were from Arkansas, and they were the real deal, buddy. They sang their butts off. It was amazing. So I became their banjo player, and I sang high baritone in the trio. And so we went to Nashville and tried to get something going there at one point. And it wasn't really happening because at the time, Nashville, well, it was a dry county. And so there wasn't much live action going on each night other than the Opry,
Yeah.
which was on the weekends only back then. Now it's every night there's
Yeah.
something going on at the Opry.
Yeah, it's a corporation.
Right, yeah. And it was, let's see, yeah, the Ryman was it was originally a church, and then
Yeah.
it turned into, the Grand Ole Opry.
Yeah, it's always a trip to play there, and the whole place is still pews.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And when I played there, I'll back up a little bit. We got to, Vernon Ray and I worked there for a while. Then they decided they were going to come back to California because it wasn't happening for them. So they came back to, I think, Stockton and Tracy, both of them
Okay.
living in different areas. And I stayed there, and I got a call from Earl Scruggs. And Earl's, I thought it was somebody punking me from out here, and he said, I really enjoy your playing. I saw you on the Carl Tipton show, which was a weekly bluegrass show on Channel 8 out of Murfreesboro.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, really, you like my playing? He said, yes, very much. I'd like you to come to the house. And I said, sure, okay. So I got my banjo and went over there, and he said, well, I kind of got you over here under false pretenses. I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, I have to go in the hospital for a hip operation. I had a car wreck in '55. I don't know if you remember that. I said, oh, I do. I read all about you,
Yeah. I know you.
Yeah, really. And so he said, maybe you could fill in for me for a couple of weeks, And all I remember is this kind of buzzing in my head. I don't remember anything else
Wow.
that he said after that. It was like, are you serious about that? Yes, And so he said, well, let's pick a few tunes. So we did, and he said, do you know the Martha White theme? And I said, yeah. And so we did their sponsors theme song, and it was amazing. He was such a sweet man.
Yeah, he was really great.
Oh my gosh, I just loved him to death. Anyway, so I worked with him, with Flat and the guys for a couple of weeks. Then I got a call from Dean Webb, who was in the Dillards at the time. Douglas had left the group to join Gene Clark, and the Dillard and Clark
Yeah.
band. So Dean said, we heard you were just on the road with Lester. Yeah. Well, Rodney would like to, have you come out and audition, if you want to come back to California. I said, I'd be happy to,
Yeah.
Because I missed California.
Yeah.
And so I went out there and auditioned. We played a few tunes, and Rodney says, you got the job if you want it. So then I moved back to California.
Wow.
And through him, I started doing recording sessions with people like Linda Ronstadt and, Sammy Johns, all kinds of different folks in town, and I would run into them at the Troubadour most of the time, because that was kind of like you said, is kind of the hub of what was going on.
Yeah, the hotbed.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And so that led to, let's see. Oh, let me digress a minute. When we had the Pine Valley Boys down there, when we were working for Doug Weston, this guy, he was a concert promoter, Hal Zeiger, and he was promoting a show at the in New York, what's the famous?
The Beacon?
No.
The Bottom End?
No.
Is it a club you're thinking of?
No.
Oh.
It's a concert hall.
Oh, Carnegie Hall?
Carnegie Hall.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah, that little venue.
Yeah, and he had, I think, 5 or 6 acts, including Odetta and some other folk type acts, and he wanted us to come and play it. So we did. So that was my first time out of town,
It's kind of nice to hit Carnegie Hall.
Yeah. So that was great. We had a great time doing that. And when I came back, we had a tour for Hollywood Hootenanny. Jack Linkletter.
Yes.
Okay. So we were on that tour, and that's where I met Mike Post. Mike had a group called the Wellenbrook Singers, 2 guys and 2 girls, and they were folkies, And so Mike and I became friends, and we were on that tour in November of '63. On our way back to California, we did all the southern colleges all the way to Key West, Florida, and on our way back, we stopped in Dallas, and that's when Kennedy got killed.
Wow.
And so we were stuck in this motel, and the dates from there to California all canceled, of course.
Yeah.
So we all climbed in the Continental Trailways bus that we were on and went back to LA. And that was just an amazing period where the entire country just shut down.
Like 9/11. Yeah, I mean,
everybody remembers where they were when that happened.
Absolutely.
And so came back and stayed in town. The band broke up. Pine Valley Boys went back up to the Bay Area, and I stayed in LA and just started working, and Mike was right at the point where he was doing things with the first edition, and then he did Classical Gas with
Mason Williams, yeah.
And then he got TV work, and Mike was smart enough to realize he wasn't a session guitar player, so he went to school to learn how to compose, how to read music, and conduct.
Yeah.
He's
still, when I look back at all the time we spent, he's still the best conductor I've ever worked with.
See, he went to some guy, I can't remember his name, he was an old man that taught him how to conduct.
Yeah.
And he said
his definition as a conductor was like unparalleled. I've worked with so many conductors over the years, and nobody is as good as Mike.
Well, with his partner Pete Carpenter, he was hard to follow because he was like this, where Mike was very,
very demonstrative,
very direct.
So
so he hired me to work on the Rockford Files. So I worked on that show for 8 years.
Yeah.
Playing banjo and learning how to follow a click track. I had no experience with any of that.
Yeah.
And it was frightening sitting in a room with 80 guys, looking at a big screen and click track, and oh my God,
Yeah, no, that was
trying to
all.
work that out.
Those
But he
were
was-
magic times.
Huh?
Those were magical times.
They were. So I'm sitting next to Larry Carlton and Danny Ferguson
Yeah.
and Lyle Ritz and all those guys.
Yeah, it was deep.
It was
really deep.
Jimmy Gordon.
Yeah.
And Bear, he was
Yeah,
part of that. Mike Baird
yeah,
and Larry Mahobrack, Mike Melvoin.
yeah. Rubini, all of those guys.
Yeah.
Chuck
Chuck
Finley.
Yeah, Chuck Finley and Chuck DeMonico.
Yeah,
And it was an amazing time for me as an unschooled musician to learn about that. And I'll always thank Mike for that
Yeah.
opportunity. Yeah.
and then how did you hook up with Byron?
Byron
Berline.
Yes,
Yeah.
Byron had worked with Bill Monroe, and when I was in Nashville, he was working with him at the time. So I ran into him there a couple of times. But then he came out. He was from Oklahoma, and he came out to L.A. to work on a Dillard album called "Pickin' and Fiddlin'." It's still out there if you can, look it up.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were on Elektra. I think anyway. But Byron was, the fiddler in town because everybody wanted to use him because he was so good.
Yeah,
Well, the only chink in the armor for him was that he couldn't read music. It was all just in his head and
Yeah.
in his heart. And so then he started a band, the Country Gazette.
Yep.
And originally it was Billy Ray Latham on banjo, Roger Bush on bass. I was playing guitar and Byron was playing fiddle. And I think Byron wanted me to play guitar because he wanted a lead singer, And so that's how the Gazette originally started. And then we went in to record. Jim Dixon produced the first
Yep.
record we did. And we had Clarence White come in and play some guitar. And it was wonderful.
yeah,
It was very experimental back then, as you know,
yeah,
where people would just kind of hire you because of what you bring to the party
yeah.
and not tell you exactly.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah,
kind of
sure.
thing.
Well,
Yeah.
Peter Asher was a great producer like that.
Yeah,
He would hire me to work on Linda's stuff, and he would, I played banjo on Faithless Love, the real slow part.
yeah,
And he just said, play what you feel. And that's a mark of a really good producer,
Yeah.
I think.
yeah. He's a real orchestrator in terms of hunter-gatherer of musicians.
Yes, yeah. So,
But I remember working on one of the Country Gazette albums, and it was
yes.
so much fun being in the studio with that energy.
Yeah, because it was you and Roger,
Yeah,
right? It was acoustic and electric bass.
Yeah.
And that was Jim Dixon's idea.
yeah,
When he told me that, I went, oh, what a great idea.
yeah. No, it was. I've featured that on this channel a long time ago.
Oh, great.
Really loved
Yeah,
that whole
yeah, yeah.
period.
So I was with them for a while. I didn't go on the road with them because I was too busy doing sessions with other people.
Yeah,
So Kenny Wirtz came in, and he played guitar and sang a lot of the leads. And then Alan Mundy came in and played banjo. And that was really the nucleus of the good Gazette band.
okay, cool.
Yeah. So it was Byron, Alan Mundy, Kenny Wirtz, Roger Bush. And
Well, it's deep.
yeah,
It's
I know.
really, really deep.
Yeah, yep.
And then, because then it's gone on you with Desert Rose Band
Yeah.
and all of that. So
Yeah. Just doing a lot of sessions. And then I got a call from Johnny Rivers, and I went in and started working with him on a lot of his records, L.A. Reggae and a bunch of those back then. And we ended up going to Paris and recorded an album at the Olympia Theater.
oh, great.
Yeah, and it was Jimmy Gordon on drums and Dean Parks on guitar, Chuck Finley and Chuck DeMonico. And no, it wasn't Chuck DeMonico. It was Jack Conrad
Oh yeah,
on bass,
yeah.
and Mike Melvoin on piano, and Jim Horn.
Oh.
Yeah, and so it was a great band.
And the Olympia is such a beautiful room to play.
Boy, Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a great time.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I worked with Johnny for a while, and then he said, "Why don't you do a record?" I went, "I don't really, have a lot of material." And, well, start writing, So he got me into the writing thing, of, because he at one point was handling Jimmy Webb's publishing.
Really?
Yes,
Wow.
Jimmy Webb, and I think Johnny was the first guy to record a Jackson Browne tune before anybody knew who he was.
Wow.
He was always looking for great material, and he usually found it.
Yeah.
And I remember somebody telling me that Johnny loaned the rights to Up, Up and Away, TWA, for $1 million. That's how smart he was.
Wow.
Right? And he had this attorney, Irell and Manella. I think they're a big Beverly Hills firm, lots of pedigree,
Yeah.
We'll let her in. And he was a very astute businessman. He, from the beginning, would read at least 3 newspapers a day. L.A. Times, San Francisco,
Yeah.
Wall Street Journal. He was
But
like
on the pulse of everything
he
going
was
on. Yeah.
because he was doing much of that alone. He didn't really have a band of guys that hovered around him.
Yeah.
It was just him
Wow.
and his.
He's another one. I did an album with him over at Evergreen.
Oh, sure.
And
Yeah.
it was just, you're sitting there kind of going, that's Johnny Rivers.
Yeah.
You kind of still, there's these iconic people of your upbringing when you saw them, and suddenly you'd go.
He came out from Baton Rouge with a little suitcase, because he had met James Burton back there.
Mm-hmm.
And James said, "Oh man, come on out. It's all happening in L.A." So he did. And so he was trying to find James, and he went to a studio where he was recording with Ricky Nelson, and sat outside, in the reception area, waiting to talk to James. And he said, the first celebrity I saw in Hollywood came out of the booth, and it was Ozzie Nelson. And I said, "Oh, that's
Fantastic.
great."
That's fantastic.
So James got him started, working with other people, and yeah. So
Wow.
There's a guy you should sit down with. He's
Oh, I'd love to.
He's
You could-
wonderful. Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah, he's kind of retired now. He was doing a lot of big corporate business things, and he just got tired of doing it.
Yeah.
He's been out there a long time.
Yeah, I mean, if you can afford to pull back and just do what you feel like doing, that's the ideal situation.
Yes.
Few are in that position, though.
That's right.
To do that.
Yeah.
So
from there, I started doing more sessions for Jim Dixon, who got me in with Chris when he was doing a lot of his solo albums,
Yeah.
Chris Hillman. And so at one point, Chris said, let's put something together and go out on the road. He had different bands that he was with for a long time.
Yeah.
And so I went out with him, and it was me on guitar, him on mandolin, Bill Bryson on upright bass,
Yeah.
and John Jorgensen on second guitar. You're playing lead stuff, And it was a great beginning of the nucleus of the Desert Rose Band, which came to fruition in '85. So we had a run from '85 to '96, and we had a string of like 5 or 6 number ones.
Yeah, no, the band definitely had creds, that's for sure.
Yeah. And so that was, and Chris was the guy that I've known the longest in town here, even before Mike Post.
Mm-hmm.
I met him at the Ice House in Pasadena.
Wow.
When Bob Stain was having a bluegrass festival. So he had the Kentucky Colonels out there, Clarence and Roland White and Billy Ray and Roger Bush. The Golden State Boys, which was Chris's band with Vernon Rex Gosden, they played out there. We played out there, the Pine Valley Boys. So that was like 1963,
It's a great community of players, so
yeah.
and bands at that time.
Oh boy, yeah. So anyway, so the Desert Rose Band, we had a good run, and when we came off of that, Bill called me about 3 weeks later after the band broke up, and he said, "Hey, want to play some bluegrass?" I said, "Sure." And he said, "Okay, well, I got these guys you might, think about putting a band together." I said, "Okay." So we got Kenny Blackwell on mandolin, Gabe Witcher on fiddle, and let's see, who else we had? Billy Ray. He was playing guitar. I was playing banjo. And so we had a nice little run, the Laurel Canyon Ramblers.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that for a few years, and that was fun. Then, things just started.
Everything has this life expectancy.
It does.
Yeah.
It really does. And I've been really fortunate with my limited musical education, I've been able to string it along pretty well. I think the fact that I could play rhythm guitar, banjo, and sing, that helped me.
Oh, absolutely.
Where a lot of guys who just played, would have just a certain track,
Yeah.
So.
The only thing I always found with you is I always just thought too much vibrato. That's what I love bluegrass so much for that. The purity of voices in that.
Oh,
it
my
just
gosh.
cuts like a chainsaw in there.
Yes. And if you want to listen to like the consummate country singer, Vern Gosdin, on a tune called That About Does It, Don't It? Look it up. I mean, and when the chorus comes in, it'll just send ice water through your veins.
Yeah, they're just all amazing at this point. But yeah, it's been really fun. Every once in a while, like something will pop up, like doing the trio on the Tonight Show, and there we all are on that and stuff with Emmy and Linda and Dolly and all that. I mean, we've been really blessed over the years to do a lot of and plus, I loved working on your solo records.
Oh, thank you.
And when we did Paperback Writer, I still listen to that. I posted that on my site because I thought this is the perfect interpretation of a Beatles song into another genre.
Thank you.
And all that. But
great.
all of your stuff was always great.
Well, with Paperback, it was funny. George Martin was in town the week we were mixing at United Western.
Yeah.
And he was in the hallway, and I had just worked on El Mirage for him with Jimmy Webb, that album. And I saw him and I said, "George, do you have a minute? I'd like to play something for you." So he came in and I said, "Mike, this is George Martin." Mike is like, "Hi." He was duly impressed.
Yeah.
Right? And I said, "Put up Paperback, let him hear that." So George stood over by the console just with his head down listening, and he turned back to me, and after it was over he said, "The lads will really enjoy this."
Oh, that's great. That's really great.
Yeah.
I remember one of the funniest times we had in that room over there in 3, probably in 3, was when Mike was going to be producing Dolly. And he was so freaked out and so concerned about it, and he just said, "Don't you guys screw this up for me. Don't do anything that can mess this all up."
I remember that.
And Dolly comes walking in and sees Mike Baird standing there, and she goes, "Oh great, a titty contest." And I looked at Mike, and Post's face just sank at that point because he knew the gloves were all off, because that was when Baird was Pooh Bear and he was really fat. He had pretty big man boobs going on. And Dolly glommed onto him immediately. And just the look on Post's face, though, was like, oh God, after this pep talk.
Right.
And suddenly it's
and
all
you're going,
over.
I did nothing.
We didn't do anything.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, those were great times. All those days, all the TV shows and that.
Oh my gosh.
All the different projects coming through that we got to do. I remember, I think we did a thing for, what was her name? Colt. Oh God, what was her? I see her now. Where we did a thing at Smoke Tree with Mike for her. She was a country singer, and she brought her homemade peanut butter cups to the session, and she turned, and we looked at her and said, "You should be making these, not singing." She was on Hee Haw and stuff, and she went into it and she started making Colt's Bolts. Was the name of these, and she's ended up with an incredibly successful candy company, and her stuff's in all the airports and stuff like that.
Great.
And so it's a trip. But so many things came out of Mike's camp.
Really?
Out of all those things, all those dates and all the different people, and
I know.
we did Rhinestone and all
I
that
know.
stuff. Yeah, I remember when we did Rhinestone, and that movie went right to airplanes.
Oh, yeah.
And every flight I was on, that was on the plane, and I'd just sit there, take the pillow up, and put the case over my head.
Yes.
Just,
Oh, yeah. Lots of that.
man,
Lots of
fun
that.
times.
I know.
So at this point, what you up to?
Well, John Jorgensen, who was my bandmate in the Desert Rose Band, along with Chris and Bill Bryson, he and I put a bluegrass band together. We call it J2B2, John Jorgensen Bluegrass Band. Okay, so I came up with J2B2. So
Great.
Anyway, we recorded at Sheryl Crow's studio in Nashville.
Oh, cool.
We did an album down there. She gave us the Crow's Nest for a week or whatever it was, and we had the original band was John Randall, who wrote Whiskey Lullaby with Bill Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
He was the lead singer and great guitar player, and he lasted a little while, but then his kids were getting bigger and he had to move on. So we've been using different people from time to time, but basically the band is John, myself, Mark Fain on bass, who was with Ricky Skaggs for like 17 years,
Mm-hmm.
and Patrick Sauber, who is the son of Tom Sauber, who is an old-time fiddle player, lives out in Pasadena. And so Patrick is a great guitar player, like Clarence White type of player, and a good singer, so we have a nice little quartet.
God, every time I hear Clarence, I was doing his album when he got killed.
You and me both.
Yeah, that's right. We were both.
Skip Batten called me.
Yeah.
And said, "Are you on your way to the studio?" "No." "Well, don't bother coming in. He's in the hospital." He hadn't passed yet.
Yeah.
So,
That was the most shocking.
oh gosh.
Yeah.
What a loss of talent.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to say a waste because he had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
No,
that was just loading your gear and get hit by a drunk.
Yes,
I mean, it's
exactly.
I've done about 4 projects. I remember working on with Percy Faith and his orchestra.
Sure.
And we were on the second album with him, and we are all sitting over at A&M getting ready to work, and they said Percy died last night. He had passed away, so we didn't finish that. And then I did an album with the Archers, Christian act.
Okay.
And the producer on that one, there was a giant, I think it might have been during one of the quakes or something, but there was a huge wreck up on 5. And one person died in that wreck, and it was that guy of all these cars that crashed.
Maybe it's you.
Could be, I kind of think about those things
Really?
every time I'm traveling. Everything goes wrong with the airlines, and everybody goes,
Yeah.
book us on another flight at
Right.
another airport.
Oh gosh.
No, so you guys are gigging now though with John?
Yeah. And
Great.
we go out once a month, for maybe a week and a half, something like that.
Oh, cool.
But John's busy with his Gypsy Jazz Quintet that they do a lot of Django Reinhardt type music, and he's a really good Django aficionado. He plays.
He's just a ridiculous player.
He
period.
is. Yeah.
He's
now
one
talk
of the
about
best.
well schooled. He went to the University of Redlands. His dad was the music director there.
Oh.
And so John, as a little boy, had to, sit in the kitchen, and play written music before school and that sort of thing. And
Wow.
So he's very gifted. He got his degree in woodwinds, of all things.
Really? I had
Yes.
no idea.
Yeah, woodwinds.
Wow.
Yeah, and but we did a thing called the Western Edge. It was a tribute to the West Coast country music scene. We did it in Nashville a few years ago, and John was the MD, the music director, and so he had to hire all these people, and get schedules together, and it was just a nightmare.
Yeah. That's the hard
But
part.
but once we were there, I realized, oh, that's right, John plays piano too, and there he was playing piano behind Roseanne Cash or somebody like that,
Holy crap! I have never been with him other than as a guitar,
Right.
or string player.
Right. And he works a lot for Rodney Crowell when
Yeah.
Rodney's recording, and Rodney never calls him for guitar. He always calls him for mandolin. And John goes, he knows I'm a guitar player. Why doesn't he?
Yeah,
So-
it's funny. That's really funny.
I know. But anyway, so we do that.
Cool.
And you know.
We're still here.
Yeah. Got our pensions, you know.
I know. Yeah, no kidding, no kidding. We'll see how Social Security holds up, but
Yeah,
at this
I know.
point.
You know, I'm not worried about that.
I think it's too dark a hole for them to really
Sure.
go down. They just want to dangle carrots in front of everybody to get them all
Sure.
wound up.
Yeah.
But there's certain things like that that you go, you do this, you're going to be in some seriously terrible
Yeah.
trouble.
So to just button end John's
Yeah.
story, we went to Europe last year with the band and played this huge festival they have in Suave, Italy. And this guy who produced it just was so wonderful to us. He flew us all over there, took care of all of us, and you know.
Was
nice
it Aldo?
No, Pier Paolo.
Okay. 'Cause
Yeah. And-
Aldo Galli is also great promoter in Italy.
So we were over there. Well, the first date we did was Prague.
Hmm.
And we flew from San Francisco to Prague, and the promoter that picked us up, he and his wife, he was taking us to the hotel, and he said to me, "You have no idea how important one of your songs is here." I went, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well," he said, "every bar band in this town knows your song." I said, "Which one?" He said, "Wait a minute." I went, "Really?" I said, "That's hard to believe." He said, "Well, you'll see tonight when you do your show." You know, so we loaded in, you know, did our sound check, went to dinner, came back, and we're doing the show. And then right in the middle of the show, John introduces me, and here's the author of this song, "Wait a Minute." They immediately started clapping. And John said, "Oh, you people know the song?" And you know, like a big yes, you know. So we did the song, and then John said at the end, "Why don't we sing the last chorus together?" They all stood up, and it sounded like a choir.
Oh, how great.
It was like, you know, it just hit me in the chest, you know.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I know. A little song that I wrote in 1972 in Sherman Oaks, you know, got all the way over there, and, you know, so it was just
anthemic to them.
it was amazing. Yeah.
Oh, how great, though,
Yeah.
emotionally, just to have something like
Oh
that
my
happen.
gosh. Yeah. And so we played Prague, and then the next day, or 2 days later, we went on to Italy, and this big music festival, and we played there. Tommy Emmanuel type
great.
people, they're all there, you
Yeah.
know, the European guys, and they were all just amazing. And we did our bluegrass thing, and people loved it.
That's
know?
great.
So they want us to come back next year, so hopefully
Good.
we'll get back there.
Oh, that's great,
Yeah.
though. Man,
So-
well, thank you for doing this.
Yes.
Herb. It's such a pleasure to see you and play again, and your
Thanks.
charts are getting so good.
Well, thanks for being a pal all these years and helping me out, because you've done a lot for me.
Well, we've got a good team going here.
Yes, we
together
do.
Here, so.
We do.
Well, until next time, I'm just going to say I love you, Herb, and I will talk to you soon.
Back at you, pal.
Okay, buddy. Bye.
Bye-bye.